just want to say the first picture that I'm going to put up here is kind of not that cute to look at, so just wanted to give you guys a little heads up. In a recent case in Fullerton, a man by the name of Kelly Thomas that was diagnosed with schizophrenia died from his injuries he sustained during his arrest by Fullerton police. On July 5th of 2011, around 8:30 p.m., Fullerton PD was called that someone was vandalizing cars. Vandalizing cars in the parking lot of Sidebar. Thomas had 92 encounters with the police during the years of 1990 and 2011. According to the police, Thomas initially resisted arrest and backup was called. 6 officers were involved in Thomas's arrest. Thomas, who was unarmed, had severe injuries to his head, neck, and face. He later slipped into a coma, and on July 10th of 2011, 5 days after he was beaten, he died. The 2 officers involved in Thomas's arrest were charged with second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. Both officers were found not guilty in January of 2014. Soon after, protests began in the communities around in Fullerton. Ultimately, Thomas's mother was awarded $1 million, and his father later sued the city of Fullerton, and he was awarded $4.9 million. Many people felt that many people thought that more was needed to be done to the mentally ill homeless community. Police departments and jails were trained to handle the mentally ill population. Everyone has a view and an opinion on police brutality, but today I'm going to bring to life the dangers of police brutality. I intend to use 2 different perspectives of the crime. One being the communities and their goals on how to affect change, and the police's views. But first, what is police brutality? Police brutality is the use of excessive or unnecessary force by a police officer when dealing with civilians. By excessive force, it means the force that is beyond what is necessary in order to handle a certain situation. Police brutality can be present in a number of different ways. The most common would be a physical form. Officers use nerve gas, batons, pepper spray, and tasers and guns to physically intimidate or intentionally hurt civilians. Police brutality can take place in false arrest, verbal abuse, and racial profiling. First, I'm going to use, police brutality can happen in many walks of life, like teenagers, like young teenagers, to like older people, different groups like African Americans, people, and Hispanics. First, I intend to use a community's view, which is going to be the Black Lives Matter movement. The Black Lives Matter movement became nationally recognized following the deaths in 2014 of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Eric Garner in NYC, and Trayvon Martin in Stanford, Florida. Participants in the movement have protested against deaths of numerous African Americans by police action while or in custody. An article, the 2016 FBI Unit Crime Report, Manhattan Institute member Heather McDonald said that she found the number of Black homicide victims had jumped nearly 900 per year since the Black Lives Matter movement started, which took root in 2014. The movement strives to bring awareness to their communities of the injustice by local authorities to bring changes to law enforcement. The Black Lives Matter movement organization wants to stop the violence by involving local communities and bring awareness to the crimes through public attorneys, mayors, and government officials. In order to reform the laws that are unlawful behavior of law enforcement. And next I'm going to talk about the police's views. Many sources approve of police officers, but policing as a practice is very distrusted. American historian Mary Frances Berry quoted that when you have police officers who abuse civilians, you erode public confidence in law enforcement. That makes the job of good police officers very unsafe. A majority of officers feel their voices are not being heard by people and communities. And then two anonymous authors quoted two different things. One saying that the 10 seconds you see a man being beaten with a baton, it looks horrible, but you don't always know what the man was doing before it happened. And the second was the media takes one incident and they magnify it to a point where people think that must be the law enforcement, and it really hurts officers. And lastly, I'm going to use an article from the Washington Post saying that 37 departments complied the request, and they had fired combined 1,801 officers since 2006, and of those 451 officers were successfully appealed and won their jobs back. Okay. Police brutality as a practice should never be acceptable, but there's always more than one side to the story. Only two people usually are involved, whether it's being the officer and the victim. They're the only ones who know the whole story of what really happened. But with media, you have phones recording, and it blows up and makes everything way worse than it actually is. And it causes different communities to get involved, and also causes different protests and potentially riots. We fear the police, but the police also fear us as well because of all the negative things that are being portrayed about them on TV. And the police put their lives on the line first every day, and changes obviously need to be made, but police brutality is not okay. And I'll last one.
So Ryan, a few words?
Of course. Alright, so this is a speech by Alexis. The topic area was police brutality. The way I summarized the central idea or statement, so I missed the actual verbiage, but it seems that the topic was police brutality is an issue that we can fix. Two things that I liked about the speech, what I thought were strong points. You gave several solutions. A lot of people will give a speech like, oh, this is what's wrong, but you actually gave some alternatives, i.e. Seeking change through protest up at the governmental levels. So I thought that was a really strong part of your speech. Also, you included statistics, including police brutality, the police that have been fired from their jobs and then receive them back via appeal process. So I thought that was an important point to have in there. I'm glad that you had it in there. Two things I think you could have definitely improved. I didn't catch the initial list of topics at the end of your introduction paragraph. I didn't notice that you said what I'm going to be talking about, etc. You were reading from the cards a little too much. and I thought your conclusion sentence was used just a hair too early. It was just, it was something to the extent of the police aren't afraid of us as much as we're afraid of them. That was a powerful sentence, and it was used just a hair too soon. I think your visual aids could have been really effective, especially the initial one was graphic, and it really illustrated your point, and what the repercussions could have been. You struggled with it to be
Yeah, I
higher.
couldn't figure out the button myself.
Let's see. The overall reaction to your presentation, again, is powerful hook, good statistics, and I think your voice and everything carried pretty well.
All right.
Mr. Kirkland, you ain't gotta go. He got right
I did a good job covering all the material there. I do appreciate the warning that you had about the graphic image at the beginning, although it then takes a long time for you to get to that graphic image.
I really couldn't figure out what button.
Yeah, that's one of those things where a little bit more familiarity with the equipment would help. I could tell that you were struggling trying to figure out which button to push, and then you'd get 3 ahead.
Yeah, I
And
pushed it too
so
much.
yeah, that's just one of those things that requires practice and familiarity with the equipment, and that's an easy fix. I do think that you could probably use a little bit more visual information. The pictures of the protests are okay. The cartoon goes by quickly. I don't even remember what the point of the cartoon was. I'm not sure we actually got to see it. I think it can't. I won't say that we. I know we got to see it, but I don't think it became part of the discussion that you had. And then the Kelly Thomas image, of course, that goes along with the whole opening, where you do have a fairly lengthy example that you're talking about to get us into the subject, which I think is okay. I think it's a good example. It's a local one, so that ought to draw people's attention here. It was widely covered here, and then the image, of course, gives us a strong impact to why it is that we need to talk about this subject. I thought that was pretty appropriate. You had a clear statement of what your purpose was, but it does come 2+ minutes into the speech, so it does take you 2 minutes to finally say, here's what I'm going to try and accomplish. It could be a little bit earlier. I'm going to agree with Ryan. I think you do have that nice line toward the end that you say a little too early. I think it would have been a good closing line instead of where it occurred in the speech. That would have, I think, finished things off pretty well and summarized the point that you were trying to make. Supporting material is pretty good in the early parts of the speech. I think in the later parts of the speech it's not quite as strong. Like I said, the visuals, they are perfunctory. They don't really add a lot. They just kind of help draw attention to something at a particular point, but that's about as far as it goes. A little more reading than you want, but it's timed pretty well. And I thought that I kind of understand what Ryan is saying. I figured out what the preview was, and I do think that you said it at the beginning, but I'm not sure that it was clear that that was the preview of what you were going to be talking about. So it's there, and when you watch back, it'll probably, because you know what it is, and now I know what it is, if I watch back now, I'd say, oh yeah, there it is right there. But when I was listening to it, it didn't feel that way at the time. So that's a little bit strange. But in the body of the speech, you signposted those points pretty clearly as you went along also. All right, thank you.